Verisa pushed herself from the bed before he could help her. Even so near the time of birth, an elf moved with assured swiftness. The elf took hold of Ronan by the shoulders. "You wizards, always seeing the dire. I thought my own people were so gloomy. My love, this will be a happy birth, a happy pair of children. We will make it so." He knew that she made sense. Neither would do anything that would risk the infants. When the two had realized her condition, they ceased their own efforts to help rebuild the shattered alliance, and settled in one of the most peaceful regions left, near enough to shattered Dalaran, but not too near. They lived in a modest, but not completely humble home, and the people of the nearby town respected them. Her confidence and hope still amazed him, considering her own losses. If Ronan had felt a hole in his heart after losing family he had barely known anymore, Verisa surely had felt a gaping chasm open in her own. Kel'Thalas, more legendary and surely more secure than even the magic-ruled Dalaran, had been utterly ravaged. Elven strongholds, untouched by centuries, had fallen in mere days. Their once proud people added to the scourge as easily as the mere humans. Among the latter had been included several of Verisa's own close-knit clan, and a few from her very family. From her grandfather, she had heard of his desperate battle to slay the ghoulish corpse of his own son, her uncle. From him she had also heard how her younger brother had been ripped apart by a hungering mob of undead, led by their own elder brother, who later had been set afire and destroyed along with the rest of the scourge by the surviving defenders. What had happened to her parents, no one yet knew, but they too were presumed dead. And what Ronan had not told her, might never dare tell her, was of the monstrous rumors he had heard concerning one of Verisa's two sisters, Sylvanas. Verisa's other sister, the great Ilaria, had been a hero during the Second War, but Sylvanas, she whom Ronan's wife had sought to emulate her entire life, had, as Ranger General, led the battle against the betrayer, Arthas, Prince of Lordaeron. Once the shining hope of his land, now the twisted servant of the Legion and the Scourge, he had ravaged his own kingdom, then led the undead horde against the elven capital of Silvermoon. Sylvanas had blocked his path at every juncture, and for a time, it had seemed that she would actually defeat him. But where the shambling corpses, sinister gargoyles, and gruesome abominations had failed, the dark necromancy granted the traitorous noble had succeeded. The official version had Sylvanas dying valiantly, as she prevented Arthas's minions from slaying Silvermoon's people. The elven leaders, even Verisa's grandfather, claimed that the Ranger General's body had burned in the same fire that had devastated half the capital. Certainly, there had been no trace left. But while the story ended there for Verisa, Ronan, through sources in both the Kirin Tor and Kel'Thalas, had discovered word of Sylvanas that left him chilled. A surviving ranger, his mind half gone, had babbled of his general being captured and not killed. She had been horribly mutilated, then finally slain for the pleasure of Arthas. Finally, taking her body up in the dark temple he had raised in his madness, the prince had corrupted her soul and corpse, transforming her from a heroic elf into a harbinger of evil, a haunting, mournful phantom called a banshee that still supposedly roamed the ruins of Kel'Thalas. Ronan had so far been unable to verify the rumors, but he felt certain that they had more than a grain of truth. He prayed that Verisa would never hear the story. So many tragedies. Small wonder that Ronan could not shake his uncertainty when it came to his new family. He sighed. Perhaps when they're born, I'll be better. I'm likely just nervous. Which should be the sign of a caring parent. Verisa returned to the bed. Besides, we are not alone in this. Jelaya aids much. Jelaya was an elder, full-bodied woman who had given birth to 6 children and midwived several times that number. Ronan had been certain that a human would be leery of dealing with an elf, let alone an elf with a wizard for a husband. But Jelaya had taken one look at Verisa, and her maternal instincts had taken over. Even though Ronan did not pay her well enough for her time, he very much suspected that the townswoman would have volunteered anyway, so much had she taken to his wife. "I suppose you're right," he began. "I've just been—" A voice, a very familiar voice, suddenly filled his head. A voice that could not be bringing him good tidings. "Ronan, I have need of you." "Crassus," the mage blurted. Verisa sat up, all cheer vanishing. "Crassus, what about him?" They both knew the master wizard, a member of the Kirin Tor. Crassus had been the one instrumental in bringing them together. He had also been the one who had not told them the entire truth about matters at the time, especially where he himself had been concerned. Only through dire circumstance had they discovered that he was also the dragon Coriolstrass. It's Crassus," was all Ronan could say at the moment. "Ronan, I have need of you." "I won't help you," the mage instantly responded. "I've done my share. You know I can't leave her now." "What does he want?" Verisa demanded. Like the wizard, she knew that Crassus would only contact them if some terrible trouble had arisen. "It doesn't matter. He'll have to find someone else. Before you reject me, let me show you," the voice declared. "Let me show both of you." Before Ronan could protest, images filled his head. He relived Crassus's astonishment at being contacted by the Lord of Time, experienced the dragon mage's shock when the aspect's desperation became evident. Everything Crassus had experienced, the wizard and his wife now shared. Last of all, Crassus overwhelmed them with an image of the place the other believed the source of Nozdormu's distress, a chill and forbidding chain of jagged mountains, Kalimdor. The entire vision lasted only a few seconds, but it left Ronan exhausted. He heard a gasp from the bed. Turning, the wizard found Verisa slumped back on the down pillow. He started toward her, but she waved off his concern. "I am all right, just breathless. Give me a moment." For her, Ronan would give eternity, but for another, he had not even a second to grant. Summoning the image of Crassus into his head, the wizard replied, "Take your quest to someone else. Those days are through for me. I've got far more important matters at stake." Crassus said nothing, and Ronan wondered if his response had sent his former patron searching for another pawn. He respected Crassus, even liked him, but the Ronan the dragon mage saw no longer existed. Only his family concerned him now. But to his surprise, the one he expected most to stand by him instead suddenly muttered, "You will have to go immediately, of course." He stared at Verisa. "I'm not going anywhere." She straightened again. "But you must. You saw what I saw. He does not summon you for some frivolous task. Crassus is extremely worried, and what worries him puts fear into me. But I can't leave you now." Ronan fell down onto one knee next to her. "I will not leave you, or them." A hint of her ranger past spread across Verisa's face, eyes narrowing dangerously at whatever mysterious force would separate them. She answered, "And the last thing I would wish would be for you to thrust yourself into danger. I do not desire to sacrifice my children's father, but what we have seen hints at a terrible threat to the world they will be born into. For that reason alone, it makes sense to go. Were I not in this condition, I would be right at your side. You know that." "Of course I do. I tell myself that he is strong. Crassus is. Even stronger as Coriolstrass. I tell myself that I let you go only because you and he will be together. You know he would not ask if he did not think you capable." That was true, Dragons respected few mortal creatures. That Crassus in either form looked to him for aid meant a great deal, and as an ally of the Leviathan, Ronan would be better protected than anyone. What could go wrong? Defeated, Ronan nodded. All right, I'll go. Can you handle matters until Jolio arrives? With my bow, I have shot orcs dead at 100 yards. I have battled trolls, demons, and more. I have nearly traveled the length and breadth of Azeroth. Yes, my love, I think I can handle the situation until Jolio arrives. He leaned down and kissed her. Then I'd best let Crassus know I'll be coming. For a dragon, he's an impatient sort. He has taken the burden of the world upon his shoulders, Ronan. That still did not make the wizard overly sympathetic. An ageless dragon was far more capable of dealing with terrible crises than a mere mortal spellcaster about to become a father. Fixing on an image of the dragon mage, as he knew him best, Ronan reached out to his former patron. All right, Crassus, I'll help you. Where should we rendezvous? Darkness enveloped the wizard. Off in the distance, he heard Varys' faint voice call out to his name. A sense of vertigo threatened Ronan. His boots suddenly clattered on hard rock. Every bone in his body shook from the impact, and it was all he could do to keep his legs from collapsing. Ronan stood in a massive cave clearly hollowed out by more than simply the whims of nature. The roof was almost a perfect oval, and the walls had been scorched smooth. A dim illumination, with no discernible source, enabled him to see the lone, robed figure awaiting him in the center. So, Ronan managed, I guess we rendezvous here. Crassus stretched one long, gloved hand to the left. There is a pack containing rations and water for you, just to your side. Take it and follow me. I barely had a chance to say goodbye to my wife, grumbled Ronan, as he retrieved the large leather pack and looped it over his shoulders. You have my sympathies, the dragon mage responded, walking ahead already. I have made arrangements to see to it that she is not without aid. She will be well while you are gone. Listening to Crassus for just a few seconds reminded Ronan how often the ancient figure made assumptions about him without even waiting for the young wizard's decisions. Crassus had already taken the matter of Ronan's agreement as settled. He followed the tall, narrow figure to the mouth of the vast cave. That Crassus had moved his lair since the war with the orcs, Ronan had known. But exactly where he had moved it was another question. Now the humans saw that the cavern overlooked a familiar set of mountains, ones not all that far from his own home. Unlike their counterparts in Kalimdor, these mountains had a majestic beauty to them, not a sense of dread. We're almost neighbors, he remarked dryly. A coincidence, but it made bringing you here possible. Had I sought you from the lair of my queen, the spell work would have been much more depleting, and I have every wish of retaining as much of my power as possible. The tone with which he spoke drained Ronan of all animosity. Never had he heard such concern from Crassus. You spoke of Nozdormu, the aspect of time. Have you managed to contact him again? No, and that is why we must take every precaution. In fact, we must not use magic to transport ourselves to the location. We will have to fly. But if we don't use magic, how can we possibly fly? Crassus spread his arms, and as he did, they transformed, becoming scaled and taloned. His body grew rapidly and wide. Leathery wings formed. Crassus's narrow visage stretched, twisted, becoming reptilian. Of course, Ronan muttered. How silly of me. Koyolstras, the dragon, peered down at his tiny companion. Climb atop, Ronan. We must be off. The wizard reluctantly obeyed, recalling from times past the best manner with which to seat himself. He slipped his feet under Crimson's scale, then crouched low behind the dragon's sinewy neck. His fingers clutched another scale. Although Ronan understood that Coriolstrass would do his best to keep his charge from slipping off, the human did not want to take a chance. One never knew what even a dragon might encounter in the sky.